West TV, tazama ilivyo.
Good morning, dear viewer. This is the Morning Scoop. Every Tuesday morning, we come to you with a different conversation, looking at various things that affect us directly and also contribute to our well-being as a community. Today, we come with a very interesting conversation. You see, when the president was here in June, he mentioned that Bungoma is headed to be a city. And we thought the president is just making us feel good. Then recently, in most recent visit, when he was talking to residents, he also said Bungoma has now started a path towards becoming a city. And then the big question arises, what is a city? When does it become a city? And who makes a city? We have an act of parliament, a law actually, that gives guidance on what a city should look like population-wise and everything else, infrastructure included. But then, that textbook approach, is it the one that we're going to follow to set up Bungoma as a city? Or what are we supposed to do? How long does it take to establish a city and everything else? We have 5 cities in Kenya: Nairobi, Mombasa, Bungoma, Nakuru, Eldoret. Of all these, each one followed a different path to attain that status. Let's look at the story of Bungoma, where we began. I looked for someone who has an understanding of Bungoma, who follows the story, who is enthusiastic about it. This is none other than Mwalimu Kukubo Barasa. He's here in studio with us. Welcome, Mwalimu.
Thank you.
You are most suited to talk about Bungoma. Not because you are an urban designer, but because you are enthusiastic about this place. The heritage is in this place and everything. I thought I didn't make a mistake, right?
Maybe, maybe not. But Bungoma is a fascinating place for me, because when I went to school, which is just over 60 years ago, Bungoma was emerging from a non-entity, just a railway station, not in fact a railway station, but a stop for the railway to prime water and prime firewood. You know, the steam engines used to use firewood and water. So Bungoma was a stop in order to refuel, and refueling was water and firewood.
Okay.
And then at that very same time, it began to emerge as a new headquarters for Elgon Nyanza district. And I think I saw it grow from a village. Now, a few decades later, we are talking about Bungoma being heading towards being a city. So I think it's a very fascinating story.
Let's begin with the proverb. I chose a very interesting proverb to begin our conversation. Never call the forest that shelters you a jungle. What do you make of that?
Never call
a forest that shelters you jungle.
Right. For anybody to say Bungoma, anybody from Bungoma to say Bungoma is not able to become a city, I think they are not being fair. I think our city can become a city, or our town can become a city. It is our place, it is our home. So we have every right to dream.
From 1924, when Bungoma started shaping up, the refueling stop you mentioned,
yes.
And then later on a trading center, later on an administrative center. That journey, in brief, can you just take us through and then look at the development of the town, and then as a district headquarters, then now as a county headquarters?
Bungoma was, as I said, railway stop, and it was exactly the same as Sudi station. You know, there was nothing there except a landi and water point and so on. And the colonial government had not imagined that there would be anything in Bungoma until the people of Bungoma began to agitate that under North Nyanza district, they were not getting a fair deal. So they needed to have their own district in order for them to get a good deal. And this was granted, and that's how Elgon Nyanza was created in the mid-50s. And immediately the colonial administrators identified Kapchai, very close to where Chief Sudi had residence, as the most suitable place to build a headquarter. But the local elders, the local leaders, they were not elders then, they were quite young people. The leaders in the new district said, yes, Chebukwa, Kapchai look lovely, but they are not going to serve our purpose. We need our headquarter to be on the railway line so that we can transport our coffee and transport our maize to the market and transport our cotton to the market. So Bungoma was selected as district headquarter for commercial reasons, to use the railway to export the products from Bungoma both to the rest of Kenya and to United Kingdom and India.
That was in the 50s, right?
That was in the 50s.
Then the journey began. The developments along the way,
Yes.
one shop here, another one there, a storage building emerges, and then a shopping mall arrives. Okay, we don't have a shopping mall yet, but yes, we are headed there.
No, it wasn't like that. Bungoma didn't grow up like that. Bungoma was planned. It was a fully planned urban center. I think the first place in Kenya to be planned was Bungoma. And
How
in this,
so?
in this plan, there was a shopping street which runs from Khetia, what is it called? Khetia, what? The one in the corner.
Highway or the cooperative bank?
Yeah, from Cooperative Bank,
Yeah.
from Cooperative Bank up to the last Khetia as you go northwards.
That is
Crossroads. Yes, that was the shopping street. And just outside was an Esso petrol station where the current Total is located. And then next to the Total petrol station was the market. And that was the end of the shopping area. Now, as you look
Behind that,
yes,
there was nothing.
nothing. That was a rural area and also open space, people's homes. And then as you come from the shopping street, you are then in the banking and cooperative area.
That is now
Starting from Absa,
yes,
which was Barclays Bank,
yes.
and then you had
Cooperative.
the cooperative house, and then that was it. Post office.
Much later, ahead of the
There were
development.
three items on that street:
Okay.
the cooperative building, the bank, and the post office. And after that, there was open space for the railway. On the western side was the municipal housing, and National Housing Corporation also put in some buildings, which stretched all the way to Bungoma High School, and also a new prison. And then it extended all the way up to this area, which was still government housing, but mainly in that area was the county council housing, district housing. And then there was the central government housing, which is under the Jacaranda Avenue, that goes all the way to
Yes.
the district commissioner's house, the police station, and the hospital. That was now the central government areas, but developed by the district
Whoa.
And then at the end of the government housing was the airport, the airstrip. And all these things I'm talking about were not planned by the colonial government, they were planned by the pioneers of
Bungoma.
Not Bungoma, Elgon Nyanza district.
Aha. Which
Bungoma
later became
Bungoma.
Yeah.
Bungoma. And then outside town, so to speak, was Kandui Stadium, which was built on a wide area, which has now come back to its original size, but it was built in phase 1. It was meant to go on to become bigger as it has now become.
Okay.
So between the airport and the stadium, again,
There
was
was
a
nothing.
semi-rural area, there was nothing. Now, on the lower side, on the eastern side, were the stores along the railway line. The stores were maize stores and coffee stores, which then combined with the railway line and railway station, and that was Bungoma.
Okay.
It acted like that until after independence. Many things now began to happen after independence.
After independence. Now, when we talk about Bungoma becoming a city, it's someone's imagination. Of course, in the next few years, like 150?
No.
Or
I don't think it is that far. It depends on what people do. It depends on what people dream.
I want you to, you talked about Bungoma having started by the locals agitating.
Yes.
It means they had a vision.
Exactly.
They had a plan.
Yes.
They had what they wanted.
Yes.
Now, the story and conversation about city has begun with the president, not locals. Okay? So you see that is not going to follow the same path, establishing a city and establishing Bungoma at the time. I want you to just take your time and take us through the stages. If locals and their interests drive the agenda vis-a-vis outsiders driving the agenda.
What is significant is that the local population either were never informed what happened before, or they have forgotten what happened before. So the current population, if you look at the demographics, are people who were born after the Bungoma was transformed into something else away from the original plan. So it must, that transformation must be understood. And this transformation came about because after independence, central government, which was no longer the colonial government, began to see Kenya differently with different priorities. So they didn't give the pioneers of Bungoma the leeway to move forward with their progressive development of their beautiful town. Now, in the process of doing that, something happened in Uganda. An accident, political accident happened in Uganda. Idi Amin came into power in a coup d'etat, and that affected Bungoma. That affected Bungoma because there were sanctions on Idi Amin and all sorts of things happened in Uganda.
Which affected trade.
It affected the coffee industry in Uganda, which was going side by side with the coffee trade in Kenya. And it affected Bungoma County particularly because we are next door to Uganda as coffee growers. So whatever was going to happen to coffee in Uganda was going to have a knock-on effect on the coffee system in Bungoma and Trans Nzoia. So what happened was Ugandans began to realize that to raise money for themselves, they needed to sell their coffee through a smuggling system, a magendo system. So the opening that they found to smuggle coffee into Kenya was a place called Chepkube, close to Cheptais, between Cheptais and Lwahaha, on the border, right at the foot of the mountain. And this was a chaotic market whose staging ground was Bungoma town, because Bungoma town had the railway, the smuggled, stolen, and rolled coffee was all brought to Bungoma and put in maize stores and coffee stores before it was transported to wherever it was transported, Nairobi and beyond. And this then attracted, there's a lot of money in the coffee smuggling era, and there was a lot of violence, there was a lot of lawlessness, and that was transferred into Bungoma town. The Chepkupe market was actually a creation of a market for smugglers.
Okay. It was there, like those who came from Uganda never went beyond Chepkupe.
The Uganda people never came to Bungoma.
Okay.
The people who came from Nairobi and Nakuru and Eldoret
Stopped.
to come and steal coffee on this side, reorganized themselves in Bungoma. And because there was no accommodation, there was hardly any hotel, they went to a place which they named Mandizini, because they would then just put a mattress under a banana tree and sleep. So the question was, people would ask, where do you stay? Nalala Mandizini huko. And Mandizini then became famous, not because there was a lot of bananas, but because it was a rural area where the owners of the homesteads offered people a place to sleep, and they just put their mattresses in the banana under the banana plants and slept. Now,
so when did it become a sin city? Okay, you'll answer that later.
So it began to then change the balance between who has the money, who are the commercial people in Bungoma and who are not. The people who came from Elgon Nyanza as big traders in all the centers and in Bungoma were not inclined to smuggle coffee because they were coffee growers. They were the people being undermined. And when they protested, they were pushed aside by the smugglers. And the smugglers had a lot of money, so they bought them out. And they bought out anything they could buy. So then Bungoma grew for several decades as a town of former smugglers of coffee. And then the past was forgotten. But as time moved forward, the people who were born in Bungoma, who grew up in Bungoma, whether they originated from coffee smuggling or coffee growing or maize growing or just ordinary backgrounds, began to see it as just one of those ordinary Kenyan towns, which looks disadvantaged because it has a disproportionate size of slum. People don't know, Bungoma has one of the largest slum coverage in the country. If you look at the houses which were built in 1976 during this coffee smuggling, they are still the standard housing for a lot of workers in Bungoma, particularly the people who originate from the families who came in to hawk goods. Bungoma has a huge population of hawkers. It's not by accident. During the coffee boom, hawkers were everywhere. And they brought in Mali from Nakuru to come along with these coffee smugglers. And they sold. Because somebody needs a flask, you sold the flask. Somebody needs a blanket, you sold a blanket. You didn't need to go to the shops. The shops had been dismembered. So the hawkers had a say. And no wonder local government has found it very difficult to get small traders off the street. Unlike Kakamega, unlike Kisumu, it's very difficult to organize hawkers in Bungoma town because they have a long tradition of 30-40 years of lawless trading, which comes from lawless trading of coffee. So Bungoma has a very close relationship with coffee.
So the housing arrangement of the 50s, 60s, and then later 70s is what you are calling the largest slum, or what do you mean?
No, before 1976, there was no slum in Bungoma. Zero. It was a non-slum town because those who would have lived in slums lived in their homes. They just rode bicycles to their own rural homes.
Okay.
But The influx of this trade created slums because there were people coming from elsewhere who needed housing.
And so the development, putting up any form of development
Yes.
or accommodation arrangement
Yes.
was a plus.
It was a plus, but unfortunately it focused on the lowest income people.
Yes.
So people came in from Mumias and Busia, and people came in from Eldoret and Nakuru to be porters, to carry coffee, to do small transactions, needed a small space to pay little money.
And that kind of arrangement, you don't need sanity. You just put up something.
Completely
Anything.
unregulated. It was completely unregulated. And that explains to you why sanitation in Bungoma, the sewage system, is impossible. Because the planning ceased in 1976. Any attempts after that was just covering the surface. But underneath, to get to the actual plan, that was not done.
By the way, the sewer system in Bungoma is a nightmare.
Yes.
How do you, okay, that's a story for another day. Yeah, go on.
And then as the town grew bigger and people became prosperous, and since there was no serious regulation on building,
Yes.
they also just went ahead to
develop.
develop whatever they wanted.
Yes.
Even the so-called bigger buildings. If you look at the buildings around the roundabout closest to the car park, the buildings opposite the road,
Yes.
the first-story building, it's an atrocious looking building.
That is, it must have come up in the 70s.
76,
You
about
see?
77, 78, around
Yes.
there. So it was followed by so-called good houses, but anywhere. If you look at Lusaka Road, buildings come right into the middle of the road.
Yes.
If you look at the planning of the shops, the bigger shops on the highway from Kiwanjandege to Kandui, some of them I just
imagine.
the planners never looked at them, the architects never looked at them.
Actually, they did.
So we began to thrive a little bit like the poor sides of Nairobi. We began to thrive like Zimmerman type of development in Nairobi, like Kibera type of development. And it looked good for people, for Bungoma residents who happen to travel to Nairobi and end up in those areas. They come back and say,
They replicate something.
we are replicating Nairobi.
Yes.
So they were very proud of this dirty, unplanned town. So as government now comes in to plan and rectify things,
Yes.
there's a lot of war.
Because then, you see, initially, this guy, where you building your structure,
Yes.
there was maize 10 years ago.
Yes, there was
So
maize.
me, I came, I talked to the landowner, he
Yes,
sells me
yes.
a piece, and I put up the way I want.
Exactly.
So you're coming to tell me I should plan.
This is my house.
Who is planning for the planner that planned the planning?
Eh?
Yeah.
That is exactly what happened. And nobody was explaining to the people of Bungoma town what was hitting them. So the more the government has been making effort, both the local government and the national government,
Yes.
the more they make effort to streamline things, the more they look antagonistic to the people.
Friction is
Friction is
too much.
Yeah. So you hear a lot of bomo. And one of them that I find most interesting, I passed by Huduma Center in Bungoma next to the post office, and then there's a petrol station next to it, and in between
Yes.
is a kiosk which cooks with firewood.
Good.
So a fire, an open fire next to a petrol station and next to Huduma Center, somebody says it does not deserve Bomo. And it is overlooking the governor's office. So she did set up a fire. Cylinders will explode and land in the governor's office. And that's a very serious issue of planning, which our people need to be made to understand before they are terrorized.
Wow. I think my thinking now is this. the planning and the restructuring of this should actually include the locals. Someone should not do research from elsewhere and then decide on behalf of the people and come and start enforcing it when they are not aware.
Yes, I don't know the details, but I have a feeling World Bank, IMF are at the moment involved in our urban redevelopment.
Yes, because they're actually funding our municipalities. So
who do they think they are?
good question.
In other words, how do they know what you and I, Bungoma citizens, need in our future city? For them, they look at templates. They may have an expert and he says, well, cities look like London. Cities look like Chicago. Therefore, here is a template, and somebody in the university of such and such has carried out research on how cities should develop, and they give you parameters. And they give you ridiculous parameters. They're interesting, but they're ridiculous. So I have noticed that when I looked at the Urban Areas Cities and Cities Act, I noticed that they have given us about 8 parameters.
Okay.
They say population. Population is a fine idea. They say 250,000 people makes a city. Well, Bungoma is there. We have very many in Bungoma town. Kakamega is not there. I would like you to see that comparison. Bungoma meets the population criterion.
I thought Kakamega was bigger.
Kakamega does not. No, Kakamega is larger in size, perhaps not. No, it's about the same size. But in terms of population, definitely Bungoma is many times bigger than Kakamega.
Okay.
Now, when you look at a development plan, both Kakamega and Bungoma have development plans which are identical because they are templates they receive from IMF, World Bank. Same templates. If you look at them, starting with objectives, blah, blah, and so on, it is just like photocopies of each other, and they run through the whole country, which I think is ridiculous because someone else is planning for us.
But then you see, Kakamega is a little organized.
I'll come to that. When it comes to the third one of income generation, I think Kakamega, smaller as it is generating per capita more income
Than Bungoma.
Because the method for revenue collection in Kakamega have gone through a process which, when you look at it, it has merit and it has sustainability. In Bungoma, we are still arguing about whether we should pay for this, whether we should not pay for this, and so on, more loudly. Kakamega doesn't ask those questions, and they can see why it's important to pay those monies to the government. The next one is prudent management. The Act expects a city to have prudent management. That one I have no comment. I don't know whether in Kenya we can, we have anywhere to stand to say such and such is prudently managed or not. I'll skip that one. It's up to our listeners to, work it out for themselves.
Yes.
Then ability to deliver services. I have a home in Bungoma and I have a home in Kakamega. I know that in Kakamega, the cleaning up of the streets starts at 5 a.m. It's repeated at 8, repeated in the afternoon, and repeated in the evening. So Kakamega streets are clean. I've seen token sweeping in Bungoma, and I stopped and watched where a very dedicated lady worker was sweeping the street, and when she skipped some of the rubbish, she just left it there and continued sweeping going forward. So it was a question of the movement of the broom more than the cleaning of the streets. So Bungoma town is not cleaned. And as I said earlier, the sewage system is atrocious.
It's nightmare.
And the vegetables in places like Chebukube are sold on the open sewer. We're not in a clean city. So on that particular criterion, Kakamega is ahead.
Poorly.
Kakamega is ahead on that one. The ability to deliver services, again, as I've said, Kakamega has much better But population is low. Bungoma population is high. So how do you streamline these terms so that we can say this one qualifies, this one doesn't qualify?
Okay.
And then citizen participation, Bungoma is miles ahead of Kakamega. If you want to know, you listen to TV, local TV stations, and you listen to local FM stations. Bungoma talks about the development of their rural areas, their services, and everything. Kakamega does not talk about that.
Maybe much talk and less.
No, they don't talk about that. They talk about family issues, but they don't talk about. I talked to the MP for Kandui, and I told him the road from Ranje to such and such a place is not in good shape. Tell him, and then the following day you see the MP responding. I mean, Bungoma with FM radio is doing very well in citizen participation. We all have a pulse of what's going on in Bungoma thanks to the radio stations.
Wow.
Kakamega, it's different. It's very entertaining. I mean, you get to Sukuti FM. Yes, you get all the music and so on. I don't miss that.
I thought you talk about the Thursday Sukuti in the streets, but then okay, that's another time.
Oh, it's all part of it. So the next one is infrastructure, key infrastructure, roads. Kakamega was ahead. Bungoma has caught up. Bungoma has done the roads, but they are not as well done as they should have been. I guess there is room for improvement. Lighting, I'm told a lot of lights were installed, but also a lot of lights were stolen. I guess we are still suffering from the legacy of the Chepkuve petty theft.
How do you see a light on the mast, whatever that story is? Some of them die, but majority are actually working. When you walk around town in the evenings, you see them working.
I've heard this on FM stations saying people are stealing lights and stealing the gadgets on the lampposts and so on.
Well, they are professionals, so.
Markets, I think there are two ways of looking at markets. Bungoma as a county, the whole county, is doing much better on markets. In terms of what do our markets look like. The turnover is very high. We have some of the largest markets in the whole country. If you put together Kamkuywa, Misihu, Webuye, Chwele, Mayanja, and Bukembe and Bungoma, just those alone, show me any other county in Kenya which has that level of market participation as we have. In Kakamega, the big ones are Shianda and Hayega and Lupao. But they are not as thriving, prosperous as the Bungoma ones. In terms of the quality of the market space, we are not doing very well because our markets have a lot of hygiene problems and just sanitation issues in Bungoma are high.
Well, it goes hand in hand with the drainage system that we have failed to set up.
Exactly. So, in terms of now markets for Bungoma as a city in future, and then the adjoining supporting cities, I think the potential is much higher in Bungoma than any other county in Kenya. Even those counties that are next to Nairobi don't have the same level of market participation as we have. And then disaster preparedness, I don't know any part of Kenya which has disaster preparedness, and there is much we can do, which we can talk about later.
Yes.
And then finally, waste management,
which is also
in Bungoma,
it's not
doing very well.
We don't really like talking about.
This morning I passed by the Parliament building, the County Assembly building, and there are 3 bins. One to take biodegradable material, one to take incinerable material, and another one to take something else. And even the words used on those bins are not understood by the public. So how will they select?
Okay.
And at the same time, people have not been told that you separate your rubbish at home. So how do you put it together at home and then go to separate it in public? It's not possible. So we're taking a different, a wrong approach to this. We are using a template from IMF and from some textbook and from some expert. We are not doing the right thing. The right thing is to get people to understand that rubbish is separated for it to be effective.
Now, let me just stop you there a bit. When we talk about the city, Bungoma becoming a city,
yes,
that is the state, the way you've analyzed it.
yes,
It gives us something much different from what you began by saying.
No,
Bungoma
I'll
is-
come to that. It's there. I mean, we're going to improve. But one thing I didn't say about waste management is that the highest concentration of pit latrines in Bungoma County is in Bungoma Town.
pit latrines,
Yes, that tells you something.
because we don't have the sewer system.
We don't trust the
We don't trust-
waterborne system, and in some cases we don't have the water to run the waterborne system.
Aha. So we end up with
Pit
pit
latrines.
latrines.
And pit latrines are a huge hazard. We have alternatives to pit latrines. If you go to Kolani, there are experts in Kolani who make latrines that are not pit, but are converting human waste into manure. It's being done in Bungoma County, and it should be done in Bungoma Town. And
But it's not happening.
it's not happening. That's where the county element, I mean the city element, is missing. People have not thought about what our city looks like and what it should look like as it goes towards proper city status.
Let me ask you, what do we want as the people of Bungoma?
Good. I think what we want is to dream. And to dream is to dare. So the president is helping us to dream. And we, the people of Bungoma, are also dreaming. I'm not saying dreaming in a negative way, but we're dreaming for something that can happen. And to act is to live that dream. So we need to act. And if we don't know which way to act, we will take the wrong direction. But if we know how to act, we'll get it right. And I would like to just outline some areas where we could act. One is to tease out the town, spread it out, and not crowd it. The temptation by many Kenyan urban developers is to bomoa and then jenga, bomoa and then jenga, and then begin to say, hii imepitwa na wakati. That's a terrible thing. Don't kill your historical town in order to build your future town.
I like Jinja. Jinja has maintained pre-colonial
Yes.
structures.
Jinja is maintaining the old Jinja of Naitiro, and therefore it is the Jinja we know. Now, there's one fact people don't know. The city of London has more tourists per year than Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi combined. But London has no mountains, it has no national parks, it has no tourist attraction that we talk about in Kenya.
So what do they see?
What they see first and foremost is the heritage. The old London, where have we come from to reach where we are
Where we
now?
are.
One of the places people go to in London, like I went to London, and I remember visiting Westminster Abbey with Archbishop Mechumo when he was a young man. We were both young men, and it was wonderful to see this place where we were told, here is the grave of David Livingstone that we were reading about in primary school. And you can, stand on it. David Livingstone, yes, here. I went to Oslo, and I went to see the Kontiki author's grave. I also went to see the grave of the man who wrote A Man of the People, Ibsen.
Wow.
Then I walked across and entered the Nobel Prize building. And then I went to Alfred Nobel's memorial. If you go to Bungoma, which memorial are you going to visit?
We actually
They're
don't
there.
define them.
They're there.
We don't define them.
They're there, but
Because
we
could have actually defined where they are and who they are.
That is where the city lies. If we begin to do that, we shall get to the city. Now I'll come to that one a little later. So it is out the town. That's the starting point. The second one is create a very large recreational space for Bungoma. Watu wa Bungoma ni wapenda raha. Give them opportunity to enjoy themselves. And this is what I'm proposing. A water and green zone between Kandui and Buema.
Along the highway.
That's along the highway and going in about half a kilometer or even a whole half a kilometer or 1 kilometer. It's predominantly wetland, but if we redevelop it so that we have more vegetation in the area and have a lake on it at the top of River Sio, and then have the place as a place where people in Bungoma can go every Saturday and enjoy themselves with children riding on boats and so on, and on other days where you can go and take a walk in peace and just reflect, or ride your bike along a bicycle route. That's a very good area, and you don't evict the people who are there.
You work with them to develop
work with them, you involve them, and you make them part of the investment.
Because it's an investment.
Yeah,
it
it's an
generates huge income.
It generates huge income, so those people, instead of wondering what to grow on the swamp, can now earn money, maybe from a swimming pool, or from being a tour guide, or operating a public toilet, or whatever it is.
Because those services will be needed.
So that green area would be important, and it will attract people from other neighboring towns, Tororo, Kisumu, Kakamega, Eldoret. The children will be saying, let's go to swim in Bungoma.
Because there is everlasting swimming pools.
Absolutely. No, you can create proper swimming pools next to the ponds. Now, that is next to the stadium, so that's an added advantage. So if you can imagine coming in from Uganda, and the first impression of Bungoma is this beautiful park, and then this beautiful stadium before you enter the town. That's a very big plus, and that is a dream that we can achieve towards city status. The next one is to have a green zone along Halaba River. All the way that we can see Halaba River, make sure that on either side of the river for 100 meters, it's a green zone. Don't evict people. The people there are part of that green zone.
So they have to actually invest in that along the river.
I think the county government and the private sector can invest, and the people who own that land have already invested. That's the land. They don't need to put in
So they don't need to put in anything else.
No. But they are beneficiaries. Whatever accrues from that, they earn by virtue of being the owners of the land, partners in this big investment.
How do you manage that? Because, and the mistrust that is prevalent.
You change the law. Our legislators legislate for the past instead of for the future. Their laws are meant kuzuia, not to enable. Most of the rules, most of the laws that you see being passed,
That's why we break them.
yeah, we break them because they have seen a problem, they want to stop it. Instead of creating a new opportunity so that this problem stops, they are always putting barriers in front of people. But in this case, we can say we have a law which allows partnerships between county government and private people in certain zoned areas, like riparian areas. And in so doing, the law specifies that those areas must be used to retain the natural environment, so that the birds of this world can all come and converge there and plant the trees for us. Birds are better planters of trees than human beings. Human beings get into government vehicles, go to stop in a place and plant one tree. But
Okay,
a bird,
and take photos.
a
Good.
bird goes and eats one fruit and plants several trees in several places before it goes for the next fruit. A bird which has eaten a guava
We'll plan.
will drop here, drop there, drop there, drop there, together with manure,
Yes.
and the guavas will thrive. That's why we have so many guavas around, because the birds are planting them. And if you leave that strip of land along Halaba River, the birds will take care. They will just plant the trees, and they will plant the better.
What we do is cultivate them, not uproot them.
You leave them alone. They know how to cultivate themselves. But what you need to do to benefit from it,
Yes.
and I would like to say this is something I heard from the MCA Halaba recently on a radio broadcast. He said there are 17 potential 17 bridges. That is, there are 17 roads coming from town which end
Across.
at the river.
They end, they don't
They
cross.
end, they don't cross. If you can imagine a road which ends at the river, what is it supposed to do? Of course, it's asking to cross the river onto the other side. And that is what should happen. So our best architects, our best engineers should design the most attractive bridges which people enjoy to go and just cross as they see this beautiful park. Running from Bungoma town to across the river in that area between Ranje and Dengelwa. And again, that is where I would like to see a new system. That is a developer market,
You know,
a new shopping area, a new street
you
in
know,
that area.
I'm going to cut you short.
Yes.
And not because I hate you. I know you've just touched only the first question.
Yes,
And we had like 20.
yes.
So, time is up.
Yes,
What I'm going to ask you is, I'm going to ask you to plan at least 2 more Tuesdays
okay,
so that you come and finish this conversation.
okay.
Lay the next Bungoma out into the people's minds so that they start interacting with it, focusing on it, talking about it, public participating on it, and eventually see how much of it can be dreamed into delivery.
That's fine. I'm quite happy. Bungoma is my home, and I think I'm happy to be one of the citizens who can participate in planning this city so that it is the city we want rather than the city prescribed by somebody else. It is our own city, so we can plan for it.
But one thing we have to agree,
Yes.
for this to make sense, we, the people of Bungoma, must be the drivers of the delivery of the city.
Absolutely, absolutely. Absolutely. It must be the people of Bungoma to drive the development of their own city.
Because we know what we want, we know what we feel, right?
Mr. Zibiti, can you imagine yourself going to be part of the planning of the City of London?
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah, you can, but
It will be nice.
They will be asking you, why specifically did you come from? What do you want to introduce in London that comes from Bungoma?
Yeah,
Because you have planned Bungoma.
Quavas.
Perhaps, perhaps. Yeah, so that is, I think the prospects are very good. The future is good so long as people are optimistic and they can think about their own interests as a community more than interests of other people.
It's 10 o'clock. I really regret that this conversation is being cut so that we can allow other programming to continue. The Morning Scoop comes to every Tuesday morning. We're going to look forward for another engagement with the professor so that he can come and deliver the rest of the conversation he has prepared for us, and also learn a bit of what we can do as a people of Bungoma towards embracing the the path to cityhood. You see, there's no way of knowing how long it will take, but we can actually determine that if we work together and walk together and determine to just allow ourselves to make it happen. I want to give you I have a second. Okay, I have a minute to just give your last statement, last word.
I think my last word is we need to listen to each other, listen to the professionals, and listen to the citizens of the city who may not be professional people in town planning. But listen to them and let whatever it is that they put on board form a new paradigm for Bungoma. Particularly, my suggestion that we should urbanize more and get fewer and fewer people being in the rural area and more people being in the cities. And we can develop that quite easily.
Of course, going by the populations we have, the bulk of Bungoma populations are in the rural.
Yes.
Very few are in the cities. So we need to change that, right?
Yes.
You can follow this conversation on X at WestTV_Kenya, at Mr. Kitui. You can also follow my page on Facebook, Kitui Ohasimiti. This conversation is on YouTube, West TV Live. Let's wait for next Tuesday for additional conversations. On behalf of my director, Kelvin Kibet, this is CKS.